We are excited that you've joined us again today. We're going to be talking about self-care, and just a couple of quick things before we jump too far into this is we're doing a series of these, and we have some really great topics that are coming up. I know a lot of people have been excited about today's topic, and we're really excited to have Dr. Wendy Ward here with us today as she shares a little bit with us about self-care. And we also want to just encourage you as you participate in this. We have our chat feature that's open, and any questions that you have for Dr. Ward at any time during the discussion, feel free to type that in. Lisa, who will be helping with monitoring the chat, she'll kind of chime in and make sure to address some of those questions. Because I'm afraid we'll forget this going towards the end, and we may not run out of, we might run out of time or something. But next week, one of the topics that we are going to address is the topic of diversity. And because of the sensitivity of this topic, our speaker is Amber, and she's asked that if you have any questions about diversity, please feel free to type those up, and you can send them to us and the OD team, and we'll be sure to get those to Amber, or you could just send them. It's Amber Booth, that's correct?
Correct.
So Amber Booth, and you can look up her email and send those to her and just let her know what that's about, and we'll be sure to address those next week. But today we have Dr. Ward with us, and is going to talk to us about self-care. She has worked with our team before and helping us with some other leadership programs and making self-care a part of that. I think as I go on through life and really just, and especially in roles in leadership, self-care become more and more important. But even in today's context, I think self-care can be, as important now as it's ever been. Certainly as we're trying to monitor and work from home, but some of us may be working in a little bit more stressful situations. And again, that just puts more emphasis on that. So I want to go ahead and just welcome Dr. Ward. And so I just thought that Dr. Ward, just so we can get kind of an understanding of what self-care is, I thought you might help us kind of define that and just kind of explain a little bit why that's important.
Absolutely. So I'm super excited to be talking about wellness or well-being. This is a topic I've been passionate about way before COVID hit, but it's particularly important now. And if you think about wellness, it's not something that if you just don't have any stress, it's fine. It's something that you have to spend time and attention on, regardless of the setting. So making sure that you're each day assessing how you're feeling stress-wise, and you're engaging in one of a lot of different stress management tools. Well-being then is the state of being well, of being happy and healthy. So it has mental health components and physical health components.
So what are some examples? And then I know that we've already got some examples for some people in the chat, but Dr. Ward, yeah, so if you could share with us, Dr. Ward, some of the things that maybe that are some good examples of self-care. And then after that, I think, Lisa, if you want to share a little bit of what the group has put in, what they're doing, and then maybe we just kind of share and collaborate together.
Sure. So self-care is that process of helping you stay emotionally and physically well. So there are a huge number of options, but there's some basic categories I'd have people think about. The first is physical health. Exercise or activity, moving of any kind can be very helpful. Those people who are home, whether quarantined or just resting in place, you're not getting the physical activity you normally do on the job. It's amazing. I had 830 steps the last time I spent a day at home, and that's crazy bad for us. So you really do need to build in intentional movement. If you can go outside and you're safe, you can stay socially distant, then that's a great activity to walk or to bike, those kinds of things. But if you can't, the fitness center at UAMS is putting out free things. YouTube is filled with free activities. You don't need any equipment, but there are things that can get you moving. Even just standing up and walking to the kitchen and getting a glass of water and coming back down, every step counts. Some other things to think about: sleep. We know that when we're stressed, we get less sleep, but we need more sleep when we're stressed. It's actually something that helps restore and renew us. So adding a little extra time for sleep can be really helpful. The other thing under physical health that I might have you think about is what you're eating. So tempting to engage in poor eating habits. And hey, if you're home, the kitchen is close. But I would encourage you to think about this being an opportunity to provide really healthy meals for your family. You won't be eating out as much. A lot of that isn't possible. And so it could be an opportunity for really helping bolster your immune system, which we all want to stay healthy and resistant to the COVID, but also just to start building some new habits. So those are 3 examples of a variety of things that people could be thinking about.
How about in areas where maybe like trying to, with emotional state, are there any things that you recommend for helping to manage, especially if you feel like you're a little punchy, or maybe your fuse is a little shorter than normal? Do you have any kind of recommendations for that?
So that's a really well phrased question. Stress looks different in different people. Some people do get a little giddy and punchy. Other people get sad or morose. Other people anxious and worried. And so if you start to see any of those symptoms, you really should think about ways to target emotional health. Now, I will tell you, what you eat can impact emotional health, how you sleep, and your activity all have physical and mental health effects. However, there's some other things I'd recommend. Optimism and having a future-focused, hopeful outlook sounds really simplistic, but the research says it is really powerful. So it can help stave off depression, anxiety, feelings of loneliness. So if you can project what you will do when the sheltering place is no longer effective, even if you don't have a date, you can start making a plan of a trip you might take, or something you might do here in town that you can't do now. I think those things can be really helpful. Keeping a gratitude journal, or even at the dinner table, my family does this. My kids and I will say, what was one good thing about the day? And you can always focus on the stressful things, but if you start to focus on the good things, that can help balance you a little bit more emotionally. The third might be mindfulness, and UAMS fortunately has lots and lots of mindfulness opportunities that you can do virtually. And there also are apps like Headspace, which is giving free memberships for any healthcare professional. But there are others that offer free options. So you can download some apps and engage in some mindfulness, and it can take 2-3 minutes to make the difference in your day.
Okay, thank you. Lisa, is there some things that you could share with us that maybe some people have added in about? And
yes, absolutely. So a lot of people are taking walks.
I imagine
And
so.
you know, look, the weather has been amazing. I mean, this is really a wonderful time of the year weather-wise. So yeah, I mean, why not get out there and take some walks? And then, of course, Shelby said she's been getting back to some hobbies that she hasn't done, like painting. And I'm friends with her on Facebook, so I saw one of her paintings and it was absolutely gorgeous. So yeah, I mean, having that time that normally, I guess, we're socializing, and you know, we have activities and things and engagements that basically we just don't have anymore. And so getting back to some hobbies. And of course, Marcus said, taking in the small wins. Every now and then I will go out and clean the facility. This week was access week for our front associates. Putting together small gift bags all week was fun.
Mm-hmm.
So
there are a couple elements in there I might highlight for people.
Please.
First of all, when you're engaging in gratitude, another piece of that is finding ways to help. And we all talked on the call before we started about how this is one way that we can help others. And anytime you're giving and helping others during this crisis, you're going to feel an emotional boost from that. You actually have hormones and chemicals that drift into your system that make you feel happier. So giving to others and helping in a crisis can be super important, whether it's your colleagues or your community. Some other things that came up in there had to do with nature And actually exposing yourself to nature has both physical and emotional effects. So vitamin D, we know, is really important for maintaining a positive mood. And when you're stuck in the house, it can dip really low. So even if you're just able to get on your porch, if you're not able to maintain social distance outside of your house in your community, but if you're on your porch, away from people, or a patio, or even opening a window, getting some fresh air and some sun can be really important. And of course, if you can get out and get physical activity too, that's a double win. Absolutely. Oh, and one other thing that you mentioned, Lisa, that I think is really important is social connectedness. You can start to feel really isolated, even if you're home with family members, you're not with the same range of people. So the diversity of interactions isn't happening. I personally have set up several virtual contacts. So I've arranged, and if you're Facebook friends with me, you'd see this, I arranged a family meeting with my aunts, my uncles, my grandparents, everybody's resting in place in different states, and we all could kind of communicate on a Google Classroom or a Zoom connection. But that's true for your friends. If you're used to having a cocktail hour or going out with friends, then being able to do that virtually can really help a lot. It's amazing how the video connection is so much different than a telephone connection.
Oh yeah, yeah. So you bring up a interesting, you talked about bringing your family together. I'm wondering about particularly family groups or people that are working from home, but their kids they're at home because the schools we've now heard from the governor that they are closed for the rest of the year. And so how might we help our children with self-care and maybe guide them in some practices that would help them over these next several months that are just really outside the norm for them?
I'd make a couple of suggestions, and then I have some online tools that can be helpful too. The first is children really do best with routine. So even if their school schedule isn't that same routine, and I'll tell you, I have one in middle school, one in high school, and one in college, it is not the same routine. So you need to help them build that. So they're going to check online for assignments during this time and this time. They're going to need physical activity. So I'm building that into the schedule. Any kind of hobbies, particularly creative hobbies, not only are they good for adults, but they're good for children. And so you can just help give them an idea of what to do at each time of the day. It's preventative for their mental health, but also if you're trying to work at the same time that they're home, then it helps give them an idea of what they should be doing, and it cuts down on some of the questions and knocks on the door, if you will. The other thing to know is that children really need more social time than adults do. And if you think about it, particularly at key ages where peers are the most important social contact, and they're getting none. So trying to help your children get access to their friends in a video chat way, or to spending a little bit more time with them, could go a long way in reducing their sense of isolation as well. Those tools that I mentioned, UAMS has a couple of websites that have a lot of good tools. And I put them right at the beginning of the chat. So the gethealthy.uams.edu, and then there's some stuff after that about wellness resources. You can see that in the first part of the chat. That's really useful for in-house resources and a few other things. But if you look at faculty.ums.edu/FW programs, it says faculty, it's really available to everyone. But I have collected with some other colleagues a vast list. I'm telling you, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, list of resources. The first ones are all about taking care of you and your behavioral health. There are some online free classes related to well-being. There's a section for leaders, so how you can, as a health system leader, reduce fear in your employees or your team. And then after that is the ones for parents and caregivers. So how to help kids cope, how to talk with and support your teens regarding COVID. There's different recommendations based on the age of the children, what kinds of things you say and how you phrase it to reduce anxiety and promote understanding of what's happening and why it's important to stay in place. The biggest risk group for going out and about and not staying in place and socially distanced is the teens and the young adults. So it's important to have those conversations and to be well informed before you go in them. If you have a super young child, we have created audio books and coloring books that you can use with children. They're not on the website yet, but they soon will be, or you can just send me an email back channel. I'm happy to send you the links to them.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. I just want to remind everybody that that Dr. Ward is she'd love to field any questions. So I haven't seen any questions pop up in chat yet, but if anybody has any questions that they would like to ask, please go ahead and type those in, and Lisa will be sure that we get to those. And so that we've talked about our families and kind of working from home, Dr. Ward, I'm wondering, how can we help coworkers? And particularly, I'm thinking a little bit, I know for a lot of us, we're more of administration in the hospital, but I'm wondering about clinicians, and especially when they're working in teams. How might a leader or a charge nurse or a head physician or that kind of thing help their team practice self-care?
So that's really important too. Anytime you're part of a team, one of your professional responsibilities is to check in with each other, to have each other's back during times of stress. And it's harder to do that during a crisis. And really there's two scenarios. One, your team's all at home and isolated. And so you'd have to reach out and check in with them, even a 2-minute or a 5-minute call, just to see how they're doing, what their needs are. Be looking for things like if they have had hours cut, if they have any financial insecurities or inability to get food, but also asking about emotionally how they're doing, what could be useful for them. But in the other scenario, you're all at work together and you're dealing with infected patients or a high census load for other reasons. And you have to find the time, either at the beginning of the shift, the end of the shift, or even checking in with people in the middle to make sure that you get that personal connection. And the key message is, I care about you. I know this is stressful. Please tell me how I can help and how you're really doing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions? We've got about 10 minutes left, and I do have some more questions, but I just want to make sure that we are addressing any other concerns or anything else. This has been very helpful for us, because I'll tell you, Dr. Ward, for us, our team, we are a pretty, OD tends to be, we're a pretty tight-knit team. We work together on a lot of projects, and one of the things we were even just kind of, we mentioned to each other, talked to each other in Skype and just say, hey, we kind of missed those times around the table, and it's a really different dynamic for us to have to shift gears, and we've actually had to take more, be more intentional about connecting, over different means, whether that's we're doing. In fact, I think we're even doing a social meetup today, probably around 4 o'clock, just to connect again. And some of us will tell you that has become very important in our week, just because. Just being able for our team to connect together.
No, I agree with that. And I've heard from people who are working at home that their teams are doing more of those than you typically would. Again, if you think about stress, increasing your need for self-care beyond the normal level of self-care, you have to spend more time socially connecting than you usually would, more time being active, more time thinking about optimistic, future-focused, hopeful things. So yeah, I think you might be spending more intentional time socially connecting with people that are important to you, work and outside of work.
Looks like Marcus has asked a question here. What are some signs?
It was writing. Go ahead.
It just popped up. It says, what are some signs that we should be looking for? My team seems unbothered, but that's my small observation. I've had one employee who's stressed, and I failed to notice those signs. And I can tell you, even for me, I'm usually pretty observant around the team, and it's especially hard now to see when I see people get a little bit off center a little bit. So maybe what are some signs that we could look for, not just in the office setting, but maybe also virtually, or as our teams are working from homes?
So I look for a couple of things. First of all, if people say, I'm totally fine, I have no stress, it is possible that they're either not self-aware and in denial, or they're not feeling comfortable opening up to you about that stress. So you sharing as a leader or a member of a work team, you sharing that you're under stress and that is normal and okay and reasonable, rational thing to be experiencing right now can go a long way to helping people open up. But I'd worry a little bit about those that might be in denial. So you will see the signs, but they might not. So anger, irritability, explosiveness, sadness, or withdrawal. If their productivity is off, not because it's off due to being at home or other logistical reasons, but if they're just not the same level of performance that you usually expect, those would be all symptoms. If they're telling you they're not sleeping or they're not eating well, those would also be symptoms. So not everyone is aware. You should look for any of those signs.
Okay. Okay. How might how might those, do you know, or how those might reveal in a, you know, in an environment that's virtual?
Yeah. So people who keep their video off regularly are usually, I mean, sometimes they're in jammies and I get it, but well, sometimes that's a COVID coping, hashtag COVID coping. But if they're constantly not putting it up there, you start to wonder, because that's a social distancing approach, right? You're trying to keep yourself away and not be as engaged. So I'd question that a little bit. You also might see nonverbals. So people who in their face or how they hold their body are really stressed, you can sort of get a good look at that and notice that they're not feeling well. If they're not sleeping, you're going to have bags under the eyes, you know, that sort of thing. I'd look for those things.
Okay. So I think we're getting kind of close to the end of the half hour. And so, so I want to thank you, Dr. Ward, for sharing with us. I know I've got a lot of great information here. We are going to make this like we did with the Zoom yesterday. We're going to post this, and so this will be accessible. And we want to encourage any of you, if you'd like to share this with other people across UAMS or other team members, just let us know, and we will try to make arrangements for that to occur. And then also want to remind everybody that we do have some other topics that are coming up, and I see Dr. Macias is with us today. Yeah. Dr. Macias will be joining us, and we'll have him as a host, and we'll talk to Dr. Macias. I believe we're dealing with stress. Is that correct?
Yes. Coping with stress, and we'll talk to him this afternoon. So
yes. So we're excited about having Dr. Macias, and we'll put him in the hot seat, and we'll see where we go from there. And then also just want to remind you, next week we will be covering other topics, and we are going to be talking about diversity. And if you do have any questions about, or like to submit any questions early about issues revolving around diversity, we want to encourage you to do that. Again, it can be a little bit more of a sensitive subject, and so, but we do want to give people opportunity to chime in and be a part of that discussion.
So Shelby sent in a question, and she asked, so here, we'll close on this. So, right, you talked about community help and how that can help us feel better, but is there a point to where you overwhelm your helping and it decreases your wellness?
Absolutely. So you have a lot to balance, right? Your own stress level and your increased need for self-care. So activities focused on renewal of yourself. One of those can be helping others, but it can't overtake everything else, or you're going to end up depleting yourself. If you think about yourself and your energy level like a cup that's full, anything that you're putting out toward others is going to reduce the energy in the cup. You want to make sure that you're renewing it enough too, and it's all about balance. So making sure you're not overly committing yourself to community engagement to the detriment of yourself. There is one other resource that I would suggest to those who want to learn more about self-care. There is a module called 25 Evidence-Based Ways 10 Minutes Can Change Your Life. It's located on the Institute for Digital Health Innovation's website. So if you go to IDHI's website, that's a UAMS group, and then you click on the big LOD in black and white, there's a picture Click on that and then search for it. It's free. It has an hour's worth of CEs, and it talks about lots of the things we've talked about, but many more ways to engage in self-care that are very short requirements of time, but evidence-based, so based on scientific research, big impact.
Wonderful. We'll be sure to include that link in with the kind of the package with this video. And so Dr.
I also took copious notes, so I will be making a tip sheet. So
Fabulous.
We're planning to put together these tip sheets out of these discussions, and then also any kind of web links that will help and direct people to more resources. Again, we're just here to try to serve UAMS in the best way we can. Also want to put out a call out to, if anybody has any topics that they feel like that we need to cover during this time. We are so just because we have several already lined up, that is not the end. We would like your input about any kind of topic you would like us to cover, any kind of work from home topic, or just general leadership topics, or anything else. We can help equip you. We think that would be great. So again, we want to remind you that Dr. Macias will be with us at 1 today, and we'll probably open up the virtual room probably about 10 till, somewhere around there. And so, but again, I want to say thank you to Dr. Ward. Thank you for joining us.
yes, thank you so much.
And I look forward to seeing everybody at 1 o'clock today. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye.